You know, there are some days in this great sport that we love that, quite frankly, leave you emotionally drained. And that is exactly what we got after stage 16, the run to Covadonga. A legendary series of climbs with an amazing finale that, quite frankly, just created so much drama time and time again. Time then to get racing. Well, Van Aert, leader of both the King of the Mountains competition and the Green, ready to take this on as part of a substantial breakaway. One loop, 2 Category 1s and the special test itself up Covadonga. Absolutely brutal. The red flag waved, and like a signal to a bull, they were busy, trying to establish a breakaway. There were many incarnations of it, some of which included Wout van Aert. Well, that sort of move was always going to garner quite a few ambitions from others. Van Aert was tagged in more ways than one, brought back into the peloton, touch of wheels, down he went. Well, he picked himself back up, dusted himself back off, and then worked his way through the peloton. And you know something? He actually got to the front once again. And indeed, ultimately, was to be part of a breakaway. The big move of the day, 17 riders off and finally finding some freedom after 30 kilometres of racing. We had the establishment of a break that would finally stick. Yes, Wout van Aert was there. So were many others, including 3 from UAE Team Emirates. Del Toro, Jay Vine, who was carrying the polka dot jersey on behalf of Wout van Aert, Marc Soler, they were all there, along with a raft of other hopefuls that could possibly deliver something very special, including twice a podium man, Max Paul. Well, Van Aert was not about to be denied when it came to the first of the Category 1 tests. Up against Jay Vine, drove him off his wheel. And then Van Aert just did what he does very well indeed, descended in what looked like darkening conditions, but with the road still dry. Finally they regathered themselves, and then by the time we got to our second first category climb, guess what? Well, Van Aert was busy again. Back downstairs, so were Movistar. They were working to try and put the pressure on all the GC contenders on behalf, of course, of Enric Mas. What ambitions did he have? Well, the ambitions of Van Aert undiminished. This time when he kicked on over the peak, Jay Vine not tempted to follow him. And then this, on the descent. Riders stricken at the side of the road, worst affected, Wout van Aert again. The rubble at the side of the road was dragged down by him. And the result was not a happy one. Damaged knee, we don't know how serious, but certainly bad enough for him to take himself out of the race. Meaning that the points jersey now up for grabs, that would be worn by Caden Groves at the end of the day, with a sprint coming tomorrow into Santander. And of course, Jay Vine would move into the mountains lead. Well, who was going to win the day? Jay Vine looked lively. So indeed did Max Paul. Zana was up there, looking fresh. Jonas Aguirre was not to be shaken. And indeed, the grind continued to happen. Soler just riding on instinct. And when 3 pushed on out of the front, Vine, Zana and Soler, it was Soler that had the magic to make the move. Well, also conjuring up a good drive was Max Paul. Zana started to just tempo. Back downstairs, the GC battle. Landa finally pushed himself on. The gap, though, was growing to the red jersey, and Ben O'Connor was just drifting off a group of favourites. And that was a gap that was to expand. The rain came down. The cloud, too, was atop the mountain. Mas found himself with an opportunity to kick on this point, with still 4.5 kilometres for Soler to finish the job. Soler just hanging himself out front. Could he possibly make inroads into the mountain top here? A downhill run and then a kicker to the finish. By now Ben O'Connor was off the favourites group and they were still pushing on. Mas driving into it, Carapaz upon his wheel, Godou also in the frame here, and of course Roglic. Soler was bringing it home in the gloom. Fabulous stage win for him. Nobody is ever sure what his strategy is, but today, whatever it was, he won. The clock counted. Behind him came Zana, and then indeed Paul to round out an impressive podium. And then our minds turned downstairs. Roglic coming home with Mas and Carapaz, all given the same time, and then the clock began to count back. Where on earth was Ben O'Connor? So, I've got to tell you, less than a minute later, how brave was this? Emerging out of the gloom, Ben O'Connor, starting the day with an advantage of just over a minute and finishing it, still in the lead by a handful of seconds. Chapeau to him and everybody today. Covadonga never disappoints. Soler joyous in his victory, finishing ahead of Zana, Paul, Vine, Izagirre, Del Toro, Frigo, Riccatello, Mas, Carapaz, and of course Roglic 11th home. Soler, big celebrations for him and possibly some questions from his teammates by the time they have dinner tonight. Jay Vine smiling at the top of the mountains classification in this photo, but tempered of course by the exit of the man who led that competition before crashing. Wout van Aert. Jay Vine is the mountains man, but Marc Soler is closing in, I can tell you. As for Roglic, he sits at 5 seconds shy of Ben O'Connor. Mas on 1:25. Still in red. Genius at work. Ben O'Connor tempoed himself. He might hold on to this for the next couple of days. And what is in the offing tomorrow? Stage 17, Destination Santander, starting not that close away from the great city, looping for 2 Category 2 tests, and then what we believe will be the last sprint finale of this year's race. And Caden Groves must surely be up for that. So are we. We'll see you tomorrow for another fabulous stage of this amazing race.